Okay, let's get to the final part of this presentation, intellectual property and digitalization. So now we're gonna deal with the idea of intellectual property management in digital farming. In recent years, we have seen a clear trend towards digitalization that is spreading across all industry, product and competitive boundaries with an increasing speed of change. From consumer products to industrial goods and processes, digital service components are being added to create completely new digital service offerings. And I think there is currently no product to be identified that cannot be digitalized accordingly. The networking and availability of data leads to a better understanding of the user behavior of products. Products sold and delivered remain in contact with the manufacturers, and they provide data that is the basis for supplementary services. Typical examples of this are predictive maintenance or condition monitoring. Here, information is generated via the evaluation of measurement and production data. And that enables predictive maintenance of machines and systems. And the aim is to minimize downtimes or to predict problems before they just have an impact or failures occur. We can see, for example, the manufacturers such as Claas have pushed ahead with digitalization in different phases. You can see that on the right side of this slide here. From the digitalization of the machine through the digitalization of the machine environment to the final creation of a platform and thus the establishment and digitalization of the whole ecosystem. At the same time, we have studies that show that there is an enormous catch-up demand, especially in medium-sized companies. But all in all, the digital transformation is spreading across all industry, product and competitive boundaries with really an increasing speed of change. In the age of digitalization, we are seeing companies supplement their physical products with digital service components, and they create completely new digital service offerings. In addition to the physical product itself, there is suddenly a digital world with digital services. And only now a digital superstructure is emerging over our physical products. And a large part of the customer benefit, the value that we create for the customers, now comes from digital services. In many cases, we are experiencing a qualitatively new digital competition here. The intensity and speed of competition is even greater in this sector. And we are suddenly dealing with competitors from completely different industries that we never expected. We are just about to work our way up from the bottom, while there, in the digital world, competitors from completely different sectors are waiting for us. Competitors that nobody had expected, like Google, like Facebook or Apple. They are happy because they already own intellectual property rights like patents in those areas where German industry, traditional sectors such as mechanical engineering, agriculture and so on, penetrate comparatively slowly. They say, oh wow, now you finally do condition monitoring, predictive maintenance and so on. This is great because we already have a huge patent portfolio here. As you can see, this also affects the freedom to operate of a company. This must be completely rethought. For the reasons mentioned above, it is not a good idea to completely screw up a digital solution and then go to your patent attorney and ask him whether you can do that or not. But this is exactly what is done very often and can then become a threat to the entire digital business model. So, all in all, as you can see on the slide, we have our physical products as before. As already stated in the previous video, a systematic IP management is needed here to face the competitors from the physical world. What's new? New is that we now have many digital services that are basically very easy to copy. And here, too, there is a competition, but with competitors from the digital world who will very likely not be similar to those the company usually has to deal with. So what's the consequence? IP and its systematic management are also of crucial importance in the digital world. Accordingly, all the things we have said before about IP management must be applied. It is extremely important to analyze digital technical solutions intensively and to secure them by means of intellectual property. Companies also have to put an IP wall between themselves and the digital competition. So, below the line, Industry 4.0 is also concerned with maximizing the success of digital innovation by optimizing the appropriation of innovation revenues through the use of protection instruments. This is exactly what we can observe worldwide. The number of patent applications for digital patents that are used to protect digital business models is continuously increasing. According to the chief economist of the European Patent Office, 30% of the patent applications to the European Patent Office in 2016 came from the ICT sector, computer technology, digital communication, telecommunications. In addition, about half of all patent applications from the important non-ICT areas, such as medical technology, automotive, or aviation, they are also related to computer-implemented inventions or digital patents. That shows the battle for competitive advantages in the area of Industry 4.0 is led by digital IP. However, the use of these instruments in Germany has so far been very limited. Although digital solutions have a decisive influence on future competitiveness and the achievable added value, relevant applications for industrial property rights account for only a very small percentage of the total patent applications filed by German companies. The following chart exactly shows how difficult the challenge is for German companies to secure future positions in digital ecosystems by means of digital patents. While patent portfolios relating to Industry 4.0 have been built up in the USA for some time now, China has caught up dramatically in recent years in terms of corresponding patent applications and has even overtaken the US in the meantime. By comparison, the patent activities in Germany are much lower. Both the number of relevant IP rights granted and the speed which patent positions are being expanded are considerably lower in Germany. This means that the German economy is already in danger of losing ground to its competitors, especially from the US and China, in the distribution battle for future markets and supply positions. Of course, we can observe digitalization efforts in agribusiness too. Let me just show you a quick video from my colleague Professor Wurzer that shows you a bit more about smart farming. And while you are watching this video, I will comment a little bit as there is no sound. The ecosystem smart farming is a typical example where the networking of agricultural machinery and external information sources and services has opened up new potentials for optimizing productivity in agriculture. The development in digital farming and precision farming guarantees a minimal use of resources and at the same time maximum harvest yield. The application of the digital concepts leads to the increase of either efficiency or effectiveness in the digital business models. Effectiveness is increased by the enabling of objects and humans in the market perspective, and efficiency is increased by horizontal and vertical networking in the resource perspective. In Agriculture 4.0, examples for the enabling of objects can be autonomous driving, optimal route calculation, and coordination between the harvester and the tractor on the field. Examples for the horizontal value-added networking are the determination, analysis, and simulation of farm management data to improve the silo management, the time schedule of the harvesting and predicting the plant growth. An example for vertical networking is the optimization of the fertilization process through the simulation of the optimal tractor route and the optimal fertilizer amount and composition. Finally, examples for the enabling of humans are the assistance in choosing the optimal plant variety and seeding method, the fertilization amount, and the optimal management for yield maximization. But everything about digital farming that I could tell you has already been explained to you, I believe, in a much better and more detailed way in the other lectures in the context of this event. Therefore, I do not want to go into detail here. But what I would just like to add from my personal IP perspective is the question of the protection of these digital innovations. From the IP management perspective, it is necessary to ask the question, how can the appropriation of innovation revenues be optimized by using protection instruments? And the answer is quite clear and simple. By recognizing that competition is now also taking place in digital ecosystems and that here too positions of exclusivity must be established by using protection instruments properly. It should also be taken into account that such ecosystems are not necessarily set up to last indefinitely, because a lot of companies within such ecosystems, they change their strategy or something, and this way partners in an ecosystem can very quickly become competitors, and a company's IP strategy must take that into account from the outset. For that reason, it's very important to document and safeguard one's own contribution to the ecosystem. Since digitalization is primarily about intangible contributions to the customer value, intangible property rights are a perfect option for this purpose. They legally define what can be credited to whom and what belongs to whom. Without these legal safeguards, intellectual contributions, because of their volatility and ubiquity, would simply go up in smoke without providing any contribution toward a business's unique selling proposition. And just to remind you again, due to the digital transformation, competitors from other areas suddenly appear on the scene which were not on the screen before. A manufacturer of agricultural machinery used to produce tractors and sell them to the farmers. And suddenly a platform like FarmNet appears, which offers farmers outstanding opportunities for use. They can minimize and control their fertilizer requirements, optimize their machine times, and so on. And suddenly it is no longer the farmer who decides which machines will be purchased, but FarmNet. Then a manufacturer like Claas or John Deere suddenly would have a problem because a third party has squeezed in between the company and its customers. You can apply the same to other areas like smart production, smart building, or smart home. So please remember, digitalization in most ecosystems creates intensive competition for the positioning of the individual players. From the company's point of view, it is very important that within such a digital ecosystem, just like in the physical world, the positions that are decisive and that have the greatest benefit in your own business model must be exclusive. And this is done by building up IP positions and securing the business model through digital IP. For the protection of the new business models, digital IP, especially digital patents, may be used. And of course, you're right, very often software will be involved. As digitalization advances, obviously more and more attention has to be paid to how software is handled in developing an IP strategy. But there is still a misconception, as widespread as it is fatal, that software cannot be protected through IP, and thus there is no need to worry about it. But that is completely wrong, and I will tell you why. Normally, a software product source code is protected by copyright without any further action needed. But this protection only helps to forbid direct copying of the source code. However, another company's development of a program based on the idea behind the source code is not prevented by copyright protection. In most countries, software is not patentable per se. But if software is part of the process that solves a technical problem, it may very well be patentable, and such a patent can also exercise its prohibitive effect. So what are the key findings of this presentation? First of all, you can see that we have a lot of different protection instruments and they have different functions, and it is very important to sensibly use them. It is very important to prevent imitation and to avoid risks regarding the infringement of third-party IP. And you could also see with these examples given to you that IP really is power. You have a powerful instrument that you can use when being innovative. And at the same time, you could also see that it is not enough to just apply for intellectual property rights. No, you have to do far more. You have to manage your intellectual property. And that means, first of all, be aware of the fact that intellectual property rights is more than just patents. IP management is more than just patents. You should also be aware of the advantages of small intellectual property rights as a cost-effective alternative. And at the same time, you should use the different protection instruments and their functions because you have a wide variety of them. And at the same time, IP management is responsible for increasing your company's success by maximizing innovation revenues. And therefore, IP management should not only be interdisciplinary and process-oriented, it should especially be value-driven, holistic, that means taking every possible protection instrument into regard, and it should be integrated. Last but not least, we have seen that digital transformation is changing value chains and it is creating new digital business models that focus much more on the protection via digital IP. So therefore, it is very important to focus on the IP strategy and as well on a certain IP management that needs to be conducted within the company.